Welcome to Character in Action with Matthew J. Norcross, the official podcast of the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. Come journey with us on the real-life stories of character in action. And now here's your host, Matthew J. Norcross.
Welcome to Character in Action from the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. I'm Matthew J. Norcross. Robbie Dillmore is away this week. Now, this week, we're talking with Sam Carr, a native of High Point, North Carolina, who is currently running for city council at large. A graduate of Wesleyan Christian Academy and High Point University, he has served as student body president for HPU and is currently their director of student leadership and university relations, in addition to currently campaigning for city council. Sam joins us now here in the studio. Sam, thanks for being on Character in Action.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
Now, you're here because you're a living example of character in action. Not only that, but you're running for city council, which is huge, by the way. Now, before we get started, can you please tell our listeners more about yourself?
Yeah, you gave me a really good intro there, but my name's Sam. I grew up here in High Point, born and raised, and never left. And so I went to high school here, and then went to college here. I just got married in February to my lovely and beautiful wife, Brooke. We met at High Point University, and she works at Moses Cone Hospital, and we enjoy our time in High Point. We like all that the city has to offer, and enjoy spending time downtown at a Rockers baseball game or at Stock and Grain Food Hall. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, it's a very inspiring story, that's for sure. Now, tell me a little bit more about your wife. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so me and my wife, we met at HPU when I was getting ready to graduate, and towards the end of 2021 is when we officially started dating. So we were just friends. We had no intention of, necessarily liking each other, I guess if that's the way you want to say it. We worked together as RAs. And then over that summer after I graduated, we kind of started to develop a little bit of a crush on each other. And one thing led to another. We decided to get engaged in September of, that would be 22. And then we got married this past February, and February's 23. So, like I said, she's originally from Dayton, Ohio. And so she was a biology major at HBU, and she is now wanting to go to med school at Wake Forest University. So right up the road, and we're hoping that it works out that she gets to go there, and she wants to be a surgeon.
That's quite an amazing story. So, how do you define character?
So for me, character is, in my opinion, what someone does or how they act when no one is watching.
I've been told that many times by my guests. So,
yeah. So I think really that's what defines a person and how they act when no one's watching, at home, alone, with their spouse, with their family, or with their close friends.
Right.
And it's, if I always look at it from the aspect of, if I'm in a room by myself and someone comes in and leaves their computer sitting there and leaves, and I have two choices. I can take that computer, or I can leave it and try to get in contact with that person to give it back to them. So what would I do alone in that situation? To me, is what someone's character would be. And that's when it would really show. That person may never know that I stole their laptop and they just misplaced it, lost it somewhere.
Right.
So I think what you do alone when no one's watching oftentimes is who you really are as a person.
Yeah, like I said, I've been given that answer many times before, and you have a very different perspective of that answer. So it's a good one, though.
Thank you.
Very good one. So tell us a story of witnessing either in person or in history, someone that was a true phoenix, someone that was a true role model who led by example and made the world a better place, in your opinion.
That's a good question, Matt. I mean, obviously, the first one that comes to mind is, somebody like Jesus, if you use faith or you're a believer. But I think someone who really exemplifies strong character in my life, my personal life, would be my dad. So my dad is a pastor. He also owns his own wallpaper business and does a lot of work in downtown High Point for the furniture market. But
That's amazing.
yeah, and so I think that my dad is someone that I know that has probably the strongest character that I've ever met. He is the same at home as he is at church, as he is at work, as he is in life. I've always seen the same character flow through my dad, and that character is a man of courage, a man of integrity, and a man of honor. And I've never questioned my dad's morals, my dad's character, or wondered if, I wonder if my dad does the right thing when no one's watching. I've never had that happen before. And to me, he is someone who exemplifies a phoenix, someone who is going to do what's right, going to have integrity with it. And even when it might be uncomfortable, and even when it might not be what he necessarily wants to have happen, especially if it might come to his business, he still is going to, uphold himself with the utmost honor and integrity.
Yeah, that's a great influence on your life. That's for sure. So, please share a moment that stands out in your mind, something big or even the slightest gesture that was a transformative Phoenix moment, one where you knew you had a significant impact on an individual's life or on a group of people.
Yeah, so I think, as you mentioned earlier, I was the student body president at HBU, and during my term, it was a one-year term. I served it when I was a senior. I served during COVID. And so that was everybody remembers COVID.
I certainly do. I was traveling and I saw the earliest moments of it. So
yeah, it was an interesting year. And so I had a lot of responsibility thrown on me that ended up, very much impacting my life. It created and helped develop the leader in me that I am today. But I would say I had a lot of influence on a lot of students. I kind of was, I was elected by the students to serve in that position, and I had a lot of responsibility when it came to, one, upholding the policies that the university had put in place, but also ensuring the safety of our students, and at the end of the day, trying to maintain us and our ability to stay on campus. We were watching colleges get shut down almost every week, it felt like. And so that was a moment where I had to impact a lot of people and kind of be in charge of a lot of different things. And before I went into my term as president, I was either watching a show or I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a quote. And I believe it's from Dwight D. Eisenhower about how leadership is more than just yourself. It's about how you impact others and how you build other leaders. So really, I think the quote, paraphrasing a little bit, is, the goal of every leader should be to build other leaders. And that was something that I strove to do that year. Was build up not just other leaders, but help share my character into some of my executive council or some of the students that might look up to me.
Yeah, that's an incredible Phoenix moment. Leadership under COVID. That's a big Phoenix moment. That's for sure. And speaking of responsibility, that's actually the first trait I'm going to ask you about. You listed a lot of the responsibilities you had at HPU, and my question is, how did you manage those responsibilities, and how do you do so as a candidate for city council?
Yeah, so that's kind of funny you asked that, Matt. I was kind of heading this way when I was thinking about, I have some other stuff at work I need to get done today when I go back, and I have, some things I need to do tomorrow. I've got meetings tomorrow. I've got a couple of events I have to go to this weekend for city council, as well as a work responsibility. And so I was thinking through on the way over here, I have a lot of stuff I need to try to get done. And there's one thing that I've learned as I go forward, of when I go do something, or when I'm at an event, or I'm in a meeting, or I'm doing something for work, or I'm doing something for the campaign, I'm 100% devoted in that time or in that moment to that one thing. So, for instance, me and you are in this podcast right now. I'm 100% devoted to you and I's podcast time. And I'm devoted to answering your questions, and I'm devoted to doing what I need to for you. Now, when I go back to work, I'm going to do the same thing for whatever responsibility or whatever meeting I have or whatever I need to get done, deliverables that I have to do. And so I've kind of developed that of that's a way that I maintain responsibility, as well as in my personal life of the time I spend with my wife, I'm going to spend it with my wife. I'm not going to be on my phone, or I'm not going to be checking emails. If I'm at an event, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be dialed into that. And so that helps keep me on track and organized, and keep all the things that I have going on kind of on schedule.
Yeah, I think as we grow older, the responsibilities that we have, they start to increase, and you have to realize, hey, you're not a kid anymore.
Exactly. You kind of realize pretty quickly, I have responsibilities, and I need to be responsible. I have things I have to take care of. My parents aren't going to do it for me anymore.
Right.
And so you realize it pretty quickly. That's a good point.
Yeah. So to go back a little bit, we usually start the show with a trait of respect, and it's a crucial trait in business and in life. And my question to you is, how do you think we can rekindle the trait of respect today?
I think treating others with respect. I know that that's probably the pretty cliche and easy answer, but I think it's very simple that, especially in business and life, that if you just respect someone,
right,
then they're probably going to respect you. Like if, I respect you, Matt, so I expect Matt to show it back to me. I expect you to show it back to me. Now, if I come in here and I, cuss you or, yell at you or say mean things to you, then, I don't expect you to respect me back. And so I think if someone demands respect, even if it's someone who might be a boss, the president of the United States, a congressman, a Fortune 500 company CEO, if that person wants respect, I think that they need to also give that respect out. And not just demand it, but also give it. And so I think it's a two-way street. And I think in order to get back to that level of respect that we once had in this country, and really probably around the world in society, is learning to, one, respect our elders, respect our parents, especially even if you're old, respect your parents. They birthed you and they raised you. And I think, respecting each other, respecting your fellow man and woman and friend, can go a long way. And I think if we can get back to those simple morals, we can find ourselves achieving a lot better society and achieving a common decency between other people.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And it kind of reminds me of a quote that I've recited a lot earlier this summer, and that is, treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of becoming. That was
that's a good quote.
Yeah, that's also the school motto for Phoenix Academy as well. So I remember it very well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to the trait of fairness. And my question to you is, how do you define fairness, and how would you want people to demonstrate this trait in both their professional and personal lives?
Yeah, I think fairness is, in my opinion, it's pretty simple. I mean, you just show equal treatment to someone, regardless of their social status, their economic status, their race, gender, anything else, and just treating everybody the same. And I know that that's easier said than done. And it can be difficult when you walk into a room with your boss. You're probably going to treat your boss a little bit differently than you
Right.
will, a coworker. Yep, exactly. And you're that's hard to do. But I think still in everyday life, more importantly, of treating everybody with fairness and showing everybody the same decency and respect, it is a quick and easy way to achieve that fairness level. And ensuring that everybody has the ability to achieve their dreams. I think a lot of that comes from within. I think that in a lot of ways that people who want to achieve a certain level or aspect of their career, personally or professionally, that comes from within. That's your inward ability to say, I can do this. But I think at the end of the day, treating everybody the same is fair.
Exactly. So let's move on to the trait of trustworthiness. Now, this has become yet another lost art, especially in our government and at our institutions. And my question to you about the trait of trustworthiness is, how do you define and live it out? And more importantly, how do you instill it in others?
Yeah, I think being trustworthy is I think if you give somebody a promise or your word, then you're going to keep it. That to me is a version of being trustworthy. But I think also it's holding a secret that someone might tell you, or an important piece of information that you have been given that could really affect someone's life, and not being the one to go and spread that information around. Being trustworthy in what you've been given. I sometimes think of the parable of the talents that's mentioned in the Bible, of when Jesus talks about how he gives the story of when the master gives each one of his servants talents and asks them to be good stewards of it. And some of them aren't very trustworthy with what they're given. And, they take it and they squander it, or they bury it. But only one of them, handled that and was trustworthy enough to be given more later on down the road. And so I think how that can be implemented and what you can do as a person is being able to, hold in what somebody tells you, being trustworthy to take care of the situations or the responsibilities that you have been given as well.
Yeah, that's a great definition of trustworthiness, and that's for sure. So let's move on to the trait of caring. How would you demonstrate caring as a member of the High Point City Council?
Yeah, I think that's looking out, in the short answer, looking out for our citizens. And, there's going to be the citizens of High Point. And, as someone who hopefully will get elected, for me, that is looking out for the citizens of High Point and doing what's best for them, not what's best for me and necessarily what I may want to have happen in the city of High Point, but what they want to have happen. At the end of the day, they elected me. And while I'm also a citizen of High Point, I would want the same thing as I currently do from our current city council. I would want the same amount of care to be given to me by someone as what I would plan to give and hope to give to a citizen that may come to me with a request or an issue that they may face. And that's taking care of even the ones who might be less fortunate, and who might be homeless, who might be dealing with food insecurity, and ensuring that they have the food and housing that they might need to survive on a cold winter's night or a warm summer day, and caring for those that are less fortunate and need a little bit of an extra hand, and ensuring that they have the proper avenues to achieve what they need to achieve.
Yeah, caring for those who are less fortunate. Yeah, that actually reminds me of when I volunteered at a homeless shelter twice when I was in high school. The first time I was a sophomore, the second time I was a junior. That was a life-changing experience.
And I think that that's good for, I highly encourage, I sit on the board for Open Door Ministries, which is a local food, it's a food bank, but also it's a homeless shelter in High Point. And, I encourage anybody who can and have the opportunity to be able to go and serve at a soup kitchen and serve meals to people who are homeless and are hungry that night. That might be the only meal that they've had that day. And it opens your eyes a little bit, and it allows you to see what others in your community are going through, and also what they might need that you may never struggle with. I mean, I'm sure you and I, Matt, can both agree that we've gone our whole lives with always having the ability to have food in our stomach.
Right.
And a warm bed and even a vehicle to drive around and a job. And, we're very blessed and fortunate, but there's many of us around our own communities that just don't have that same level of access.
Yeah, it's sad, really. Now, speaking of citizenship, that is the next trait I'm going to talk to you about this week. Now, my question to you is, what do you think it means as a politician, a political candidate, rather, to be a good citizen?
I think that, of course, everybody should strive to be a good citizen, but our politicians and our elected officials should be the ones who are honestly being the model citizens. They're the ones who, in my opinion, should be out there caring for the homeless, while also following the guidelines and the rules and the laws of their own community, but also of the state or country. And they aren't above those laws. Even if you're the president of the United States, you're not above the law. And I think we can see that even now. But it should be every elected official's responsibility to uphold the laws that they expect everybody else to. They aren't any different, and they aren't any special.
Yeah. I think a lot of politicians that are in Washington today could learn from your words.
I think so as well. I agree with you on that one there, Matt.
Yeah. So the last trait I'm going to ask you about today is empathy. Now, how do you believe people across the state and the country should demonstrate empathy? And in your case, how do you demonstrate in your position? How did you demonstrate it when you were student body president of HPU?
Yeah, I think that empathy is a really important trait to have, and that is somewhat, in my opinion, putting yourself in other people's shoes. And trying to see, what they're going through, trying to see what they might be feeling about a certain situation, or trying to be understanding about what they're feeling and going through. So I think that, being empathetic for, people around the country is, in a simple word that might sound a little bit harsh, stop thinking about yourself so much. And don't be so selfish all the time. And that goes for myself. I mean, I have to catch myself and tell myself this all the time of, it's not all about me. And, how would I want to be treated in this situation? And how would I want somebody to look at me or treat me in this situation? And, I had to do that a lot when I was student body president at HBU. As a part of what I did, I also oversaw a large budget that the university gave the Student Government Association, which is what I was president of as part of being SGA president was being student body president. And so I oversaw a budget of roughly $1 million, and in that money was divvied out to all of our clubs and organizations. But we and my executive council had the final say to where that money went. And so oftentimes it would require me to think to myself, I don't really want to give them this money, but they might be using it for another way. So I had to think about them in that situation and remove myself from the equation. I also had to do it whenever being empathetic about when we in my EC went to go serve at a soup kitchen and thinking about others that were there. And oftentimes that's the job you have to do as a leader, is think of yourself last. And I always love the term servant leadership, of allow all of your, I hate to use the word followers, but allow all the people who are underneath you to be served or to get their needs met first before you yourself get your needs met.
Quite an amazing story. Now, we're about out of time, but before we close, please share with us some thoughts on how we can bring character back into our culture.
I think it all starts with you as a person, as an individual. And I think that it comes down to everybody choosing to be a nicer person. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Be nice, be kind, be caring, be a person of integrity and honor. And, at the end of the day, do what's right when nobody's watching. And, we all know the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
And, I think that's how we start back on this path of being better people that have better character, is just simply doing what's right and caring about each other and looking out for one another.
All right. Sam Carr, HPU graduate, former student body president, and now a candidate for High Point City Council at large. Thank you for joining us, Sam. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. It was a pleasure.
Character in Action is a co-production of the Truth Network and the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. Your host is me, Matthew J. Norcross. Our producers are Robbie Dillmore and Richard Shannon, and our intro is done by Robbie Dillmore. If you like this show, please listen to and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes are posted every Sunday. Thank you for listening, and always remember, everyone can be a phoenix.